All right, welcome back to the SportsMax Zone as we kick off today's show with football. 25 years ago in the year 1998, a monumental moment for the land of wood and water. Jamaica and its football-crazed population dared to dream of their beloved Reggae Boyz making history by securing a spot to their first ever FIFA World Cup. And led by enigmatic Brazilian coach Renee Simoes, the boys delivered the goods after a 0-0 draw against Mexico at the National Stadium to throw the country into pandemonium. The inexhaustible tale of triumph is now available for the public to relive through Simoes' book entitled The Impossible Dream. The book, through the lens of the Brazilian, tells the full story of how Jamaica became the first English-speaking Caribbean nation to qualify for the FIFA showpiece. So to tell us more about the book is consulting editor, our very own Leighton Levy, who joins us live in studio. Yeah, Leighton is live in studio. Leighton, so happy that you could join us.
I am too, Maria. It's been a while since I've been down here.
Yeah, it's good to see you like in live and living colors. So let's talk about this book. I feel like my first question has to be, how did you get involved in this?
Late 2023, I got a call from Ian Randall Publishers that wanted to engage me in two projects. One was to write a biography of a very famous Jamaican athlete who I won't name.
Is it out yet?
No, that book that wasn't happening because he needed to have the athlete endorse the book.
Okay.
And the athlete didn't, so we dropped that project. The second one was that he wanted me to edit and consult on this book that Renee Simoes was doing. Okay. Now, I remember very vividly back in the day, back when I was at the Gleaner, back in 1998, how the verve, the passion of the Jamaica campaign literally enveloped the country. Every single person in this country was somehow locked into what was happening with the Reggae Boyz. There were flags on cars everywhere. You know, people were walking with flags. There was a sense of patriotism I hadn't seen in my lifetime, actually. And I thought, hey, this is a project I'd like to be involved with, because one of the things that we do as journalists, Mariah, as you know, is that we capture history on a daily basis.
Yeah.
So for us to have a documented account of what happened, the lead up to the World Cup in 1998 with Jamaica created history, was something that needed to be documented and hadn't been before. So hearing from Renee Simoes in his own voice what that experience was like was something obviously I wanted to be involved in.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, it must be an honor and a pleasure. So Leighton, the title now, The Impossible Dream. Were you a part of that? Were you consulted? And I use that word with inverted commas, you know, to come up with that name, and just explain it a bit to me.
No, well, look, when I got involved, the draft was already written.
Okay.
Renee Simoes had already penned it. I edited the book, and when you edit, you go through a couple of times to ensure that everything is okay in terms of the information, in terms of the accuracy of the information, in terms of the timeline, in terms of, things like grammar, spelling, stuff like that. But what Ian Randall and I agreed on is that in addition to Renee Simoes' voice, I think we needed to hear something from the players themselves.
Oh, so you got that.
So we got some input from some of the players, Billy Gardner, Frank Sinclair, who came on after the team qualified, but he spoke very passionately about Shouty Malcolm and Peter Cargill, who were leaders in the team and who were inspirational to the team. And, of course, Walter Boyd, because in the book, he mentioned something that I think a lot of people should find interesting, is that when he cut Walter Boyd from the Reggae Boyz squad, because if you weren't around, but Walter Boyd was like the Pele of Jamaica.
Yeah.
And he was cut from the squad, and it was coinciding with a rumor that was circulating that Walter Boyd had gotten his daughter pregnant. And so, I mean, he brought it...
So he responds to it in the book?
Yeah, but Walter denied everything that, because I in one of my days off, when I managed to get him together, I interviewed Walter. He denied that, but Renee Simoes in the book claimed that Walter wanted to be treated differently.
Okay.
Walter said, yeah, he wanted to be treated differently because he sacrificed a lot to be a part of the team. At the time, Walter was playing football in the United States, and he came back home to be part of the Reggae Boyz project. So that I found was interesting as well. Baby Gardner spoke about how influential Renee Simoes was in getting him to understand what it's like to be a professional, and ended up in England playing for almost 20 years, Ricardo, as one of the youngest reggae boy at the time. And of course, Frank Sinclair, as I mentioned before, spoke about what it was like within the team and the camaraderie within the team, because the difference between subsequent campaigns and now is that for the most part, most of the players were housed in a single house up in Cherry Gardens. So they had a bond, they created a bond, a brotherhood. It was almost like family. Not almost like, it was like family. So it was more than just being teammates. It was, they fought for each other, they sacrificed for each other. And eventually, they brought in a couple of English players, Paul Hall, Dion Burton, Fitzroy Simpson, to bolster the squad.
Yes.
And so there are a lot of interesting stories in the book from his perspective that I think makes a very interesting read, because we saw what was happening from the outside looking in, but he gives us the perspective from the inside looking out.
Right. So that brings me to my next question, which would be, I love reading, so I'm going to have to ask about how the format of the book is. So you said his perspective. You spoke about Baby Gardner and a couple other players. So is it like we're getting the different perspectives of all these different people, or is it through his lens, or is it a third-person narrative?
It's written in first person. It starts out, the book is written in chronological order. It started out with Renee Simoes explaining how he got involved with Jamaica in the first place. In 1992, Brazil came up with an initiative to help the Caribbean from a technical perspective in any way in which the country saw fit. 1994, Captain Horace Burrell, I think he just became president of the JFF, got wind of what was happening with the Brazil initiative, and he flew to Brazil. The person who picked him up was Renee Simoes. And Captain Horace Burrell believed that Renee Simoes was just a taxi driver.
What?
And he said, what do you know about this Renee Simoes? Trust me, it's a very compelling tale. And,
so that's in the book too?
Yeah, he talks about that in the book. And he tells you, and he didn't like Captain Burrell initially at the outset because he saw him as being pretty haughty. And, it didn't go down well with him. But eventually, he ended up coming to Jamaica. And he tells the story about how the pieces came together. When he came together and when they put the players who were supposed to be part of the national team, he describes them as bellmen, hotel workers, basically, to suggest and to highlight the fact that the Jamaican setup wasn't very professional. So he had to introduce a Brazilian football philosophy and got them to start to understand what it was like, what it is to be a professional player, which eventually the cohesiveness started within the core of the team. And eventually, they played their first couple of matches, they lost some, they drew some, they were embarrassed by some, but eventually the team started to come together and started to do well and started to do better. It actually takes you through the entire journey right up until they qualified with the 0-0 draw against Mexico at the National Stadium. But along the way, there's some interesting stories that he tells, because there's an incident in the World Cup qualifiers when we lost 6-0 to Brazil in Brazil, where just before that match, it was a practice match with a club side that was made up basically of farmers and regular people. And there was a big fight that broke out. And he talks about how one of the guys knocked him down, and Ian Goodison knocked out the guy.
What?
As he was
what
getting
happened
up.
back in that time?
It was a big brawl, and it unsettled the Jamaican team, and they accomplished their goal. And because Jamaica lost 6-0 in the match. But there's a lot of interesting stories in there that he tells you about, even when they would go down in places like Honduras, when they're making up noise, to keep them awake in the middle of the night, and how he sent the team to the other side of the hotel so that the noise wouldn't bother them too much. And he actually went to the window and started listening to the music and singing along with the guys. And, so there are so many interesting stories that he tells you that had he not told you those stories, you probably would not have been aware of it.
Okay.
So it's a very good read, and I'm not just saying that because I was involved in it, but it is quite interesting and compelling.
Yeah, I don't doubt that it's a very good read. As a young man growing up and listening to Renee Simoes, I always found him quite hilarious. So I can just imagine him putting into words a lot of the experiences. And I was reading the description online, and it says that Simoes provides intimate and revealing pen portraits of the principal dreamer.
Yeah.
And this part hit me because the principal dreamer was Captain Horace Burrell. And it's interesting that you said initially he didn't necessarily like the man because of how pompous he was. But did he speak any at all in the book to how Captain Burrell got him, this Brazilian, to buy into this impossible dream that Jamaica could get to the World Cup with bellmen and hotel workers?
Yeah, he talks about it, and there's an interesting narrative because, as I said, he didn't particularly like Captain Horace Burrell. But I think what he saw in Captain Horace Burrell was his influence and his ability to get things done. Because when he came to Jamaica initially and saw what was here, the pieces that were here, he wasn't particularly convinced that it could happen. But when he needed stuff done and needed support, for example, from corporate Jamaica, he saw how powerful Captain Burrell was.
Why did he come then?
But I think it was a challenge. I think based on what he said in the book, I think he saw it as a challenge because, as you know, well, not you as you know, but initially...
what are you saying later?
No. Yeah, sometimes I forget where I am. The reality is that he had had coaching experience prior to coming to Jamaica. Coached the Brazilian under 17s, yeah, and he coached in Saudi Arabia. And he was the under-18 coach for Vasco da Gama. So I think he saw the Jamaican experiment as something of a challenge, something that he could sink his teeth in, but he didn't understand the gravity or the vast, the almost impossible dream of turning Jamaica around from an amateurish situation into semi-professional and eventually qualifying for the World Cup. So I think in his conversations with Captain Horace Burrell and, in fact, the Brazilian Federation, and, of course, I think P.J. Patterson, if I remember correctly, he eventually decided to try his hand coming to Jamaica. And coming here, at the outset, it was very difficult because when you're used to working in a system where the things are available to you, to come to somewhere where they're not, you know, you could sense that time based on the narrative that he had doubts about whether or not he could accomplish what he wanted to accomplish here. But I think he was convinced by Captain Burrell's influence. And when you read the book, you realize, I mean, we all knew Captain Burrell had influence.
Yes.
But reading the book, you get a sense of just how influential he was, the ability to do things that many people thought impossible.
Yeah, but I wonder if things have even changed because we had Jaime Holgrimson here and the similar thing, the similar narrative about, you know, the structure and the professionalism.
Yeah, I think the difference between then and now is that I think there's a greater understanding of what is required. Whether or not there's a will is a different matter. But I think back in 1994, things were not as they were now. Now Jamaica has qualified coaches coaching the Premier League teams. Back then, it was, for the most part, a guy who liked football and thought himself as a coach. As it relates to a sense of professionalism, back then, there weren't very many Jamaicans playing football overseas professionally. Now you have a number of Jamaicans playing in Europe and in the United States playing professional football and doing quite well. So I think that's one of the legacies of, I think, what Renee Simoes accomplished in Jamaica. He gave us, and there are nuggets in the book about little things. If you look at them in isolation, you see there are nuggets about how actually things should go. And what we've seen, I think, the legacy of what Renee Simoes has left with Jamaica is what we're now seeing. Leon Bailey playing Premier League football, clubs like Phoenix Academy and Ballers doing things and building young players, bringing them up through the system. What needs to happen, and I think he doesn't speak to it specifically, but what he talks about in the book tells you, it's something I've been talking about for years, that there needs to be a national philosophy about how Jamaica wants to play football. He brought and he borrowed from Brazil's philosophy and implemented it here.
Yeah.
But the football has evolved beyond that since that time. And I think he's left a lot of nuggets in that book about how it can be accomplished.
Yeah, fair enough. By the way, the book is only just about $20, $20 US.
Yes.
$19.95 is what I'm seeing online. I'll get my copy soon. Really not bad at all. But I want to know, Leighton, if he speaks any at all, and I know this is outside of that 98 qualifying window, but the end of his tenure and his return to Jamaica, whether he speaks any at all about that period.
Not in any detail. You know, he brought us to the end of the journey when Jamaica qualified, and that was pretty much it, because that was where the dream became a reality. And I think that was a journey that he wanted to take us on. And it's a very interesting journey. And I think, look, the book is available at Ian Randall Publishers. It's on, what's that road called? The road where the gas station is that takes you down to Bob Marley Statue.
There are a few gas stations.
No.
The one by
Barbican
Pegasus?
Road?
No, man.
Is that Barbican Road?
No, man, not Barbican
Ligani
Road.
Avenue?
No.
Okay, well, let's not spend all day trying to figure it out.
Arthur Wynn Drive? That's not Arthur Wynn Drive. The one that the road that takes you from...
You're such a Caribbean man giving
I
directions.
tell you with directions.
No,
My wife can tell you. But you know where the Bob Marley statue is?
Yes.
It's just further up that road.
Okay,
Leighton.
Thanks for
Right
that.
to the top of the
We
road.
appreciate that.
We'll go by the Bob Marley's statue and we'll figure it out.
But you cannot know that. But for some reason I can't remember the road.
But it's online.
Yeah, but it's a beautiful story.
Yeah.
And it takes you through the pitfalls. It takes you through the drama of, you know, the headbutting with the different stakeholders. It takes you through the challenges that the players faced as emerging into a professional setup. Yeah. And it just tells you about how Shorty Malcolm and all of these different players, the roles that they played in the team. And it's a really powerful book, actually.
Yeah. I don't know if this is the beginning, the middle, or the end, but here's an excerpt from the book. The crowd erupted. Theodore Whitmore sprinted across the field carrying the Jamaican flag. Players ran behind him in celebration. We had done it.
Yeah.
The road to France was a reality. It had been truly a journey with curves, mountains, and bumps along the way.
Yeah, that was close to the end of the book when we were heading up into the qualification. Remember, when it came to Jamaica, Mary, you wouldn't have known this.
I don't know why you keep saying that, Leighton.
You're just trying to tell people I'm young.
We read these things too, you know.
I'm not that much of a baby, and I read.
Jamaica just needed that draw.
She's a big woman.
Yeah, Jamaica just needed that draw from Mexico.
Yes.
Yeah.
And as a result, Mexico had already qualified. They didn't need to.
Leighton, you know you're not talking to 6-year-olds, right?
And even though we were not born, we read.
No, I was born.
Yeah.
No, I was born too.
Yeah.
No, I'm just saying, I was born. It's
You're
1998.
like 5.
Okay, good that you see me as 5. Thanks. I'll take that.
She was more like 13, Leighton, but... Yeah.
No, man, Mary's not 40, I did.
If I'm 40,
Var, I think this segment is getting out of hand.
I think, yes.
No, but go get the book. It's a good read, and it's a good gift to give to anybody who loves football and follows Jamaican football and is passionate about Jamaican football. The Impossible Dream is a really good gift.
Yeah.
And it's affordable, and it's a very good story. One that I think, if you're a fan of football, you can pass down to your kids who can say, if Jamaica never qualifies for another World Cup.
Oh, dear.
It is probably happening very soon. But they
will qualify.
It charts a pathway to what was a historic moment in Jamaica's sporting history as well.
Yeah, I just want to clarify what you said just now. You mean like they can qualify very soon? It will happen very soon?
Yeah, I think this team is good enough to qualify.
Good, okay.
And because there are a couple of extra spots for CONCACAF. It's 2, right? It's a couple.
No, I think it's 6.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But beyond the usual 3, it's 3.5.
Yeah.
So it's a bigger, chance.
There's a better chance of qualifying. So,
all right.
Yeah. So, but yeah, man. But I enjoyed editing it. I enjoyed interviewing the players. I mean, Walter Boyd is, Blacker Boyd is something special.
Yeah.
And it was a worthy venture for me. I mean, it consumed a lot of my time the time that I usually had off, because I usually schedule interviews on the days when I wasn't working.
Understand.
And it was worth every single minute of it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, Leighton, I can't wait to read it. I want to thank you for gracing us with your presence in studio. And I hope that you make this a habit and that you're here on the show when we need you.
Maybe we just need to get him to edit more books.
Leighton,
You should write one, Mariah.
yeah, a pleasure. Thank you. And we'll talk soon. You can go back to watching your Liverpool and we will take a break.